Alright, heads up. Calling this a mostly spoiler-free review. There's maybe one plot point from literally the beginning of the movie that's a surprise if you've avoided the trailers, but can't really be talked around in my opinion, which means I'm not going to get involved in telling you what's in it, but I might end up offering some praise for what's not in it, if that makes sense. So bottom line, if you want to know absolutely nothing about what I thought, except what I thought it was good, worth seeing, lots of fun, actually much different than I thought it was going to be, given a lot of the viral marketing and hype and focus, but about as good as I wanted it to be based on what I felt the series in particular needed to accomplish, chiefly in managing to be both a big, fast-moving romp more than the first one, but also a darker, weirder leap in the direction of full-on supernatural horror as well. Yeah, anyway, if you don't want to know anything else, go see it for yourself. So this is the point where we acknowledge that exactly what denotes a sequel in the main character appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe project now has about as much fluidity as what denotes a solo movie, team-up movie, or limited streaming series in that same meta-franchise, right? Because while one allows that the grand cultural pause button of the COVID pandemic and everything else has played its own role, it's pretty wild to remember that this is meant to be only the second actual Doctor Strange movie since 2016, even as Doctor Strange has appeared as one of the main characters in three significantly bigger deal Marvel movies since then, and even variant versions on What If, even when he's just a cameo like in Thor Ragnarok or not around himself, but his stuff is, like in Shang-Chi, figures as a major presence and just hasn't shown up but gone through significant steps of development and status quo shakeup. Not saying it's a problem or innately good or bad, just observing it's observable. Yeah. As it happens in this specific instance, I'd say that does the movie itself a favor in terms of its own internal pacing and definitely in terms of what senses the audiences want out of a movie like this in this specific moment. For good or ill, the pop discourse having momentarily shifted into backlash mode against punishingly long runtimes and overwrought everything needs an arc always superhero story structure, I doubt I'll be the only one who comes away grateful that someone on the production end decided, you know, since this is really kind of Doctor Strange Part 5 when you think about it, and he's done 3 or 4 whole arc things at this point, maybe this is the appropriate and necessary time to let the character hit the serialized part of this franchise life, a la James Bond, Indiana Jones, Sherlock Holmes, etc., the point where the name on the box is a fully established hero whose deal we already know, and the story arc adventure structure of the moment is triggered and then framed around the arc of a new character, or characters who arrive with a case, mission, assignment, etc. for the protagonist to undertake or help them out with. You know, like he's a comic book superhero or something. I mean, maybe we touch on the running themes of his situation, like unresolved relationship issues, villains to be battled at later times or something, but mostly Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a movie where Doctor Strange, you know, the character you remember from the previous Doctor Strange movies, having to confront the Multiverse of Madness and doing that. So then our shockingly straightforward, giving the eventual banana pantsness premise goes something like this. Xochitl Gomez, America Chavez, a teenage would-be superhero with the power to literally punch holes through the fabric of reality and travel to alternate realities, comes under Doctor Strange's protection after being chased into the Marvel Cinematic Universe by big slimy monsters who want to steal the girl's multiverse traveling powers. Realizing that forces aligned against Chavez are not merely magic but in fact witchcraft, Strange seeks out counsel from the self-exiled Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, only to discover that her ongoing study into the Darkhold, the Book of Black Magic acquired at the conclusion of the WandaVision series, has fully corrupted her, and she is in fact the villain who is after the girl in the first place, believing her powers to be the key to reviving the Phantom family she lost in the Westview incident from that same series. The fight to prevent this becomes a chase across multiple realities as Strange and Wanda try to out-magic trick one another in what's ultimately a one damn thing after another cross between Terminator 2 and the Wizard's Duel from Sword in the Stone, played out at feature length, with some highly entertaining but thankfully not overlong detours for Scarlet Witch to explore a mountain temple as the source of her dark powers, and Strange to confront a seemingly utopian reality's way overpowered all-star superhero team of, oh hey look, it's those guys, Marvel fan service cameos, whose presence is only made more amusing by the film's very strong less is more understanding of how such sequences need to be drawn out, and genre pro director Sam Raimi's obvious delight in unraveling audiences' expectations, literally and figuratively, chief among those being that the finished film might have at some point evolved away from its initial pitch several years and a different creative team ago as Marvel's first lean into the horror genre to be more of a cameo fest following rumored reshoots and the success of of the last Spider-Man film, which was basically that, but that turns out to be far from the case. Raimi pulls the franchise aesthetic away from the transcendental psychedelia of the first film and instead layers on his old-timey spook house shtick straight out of the Evil Dead cycle, all the snap zooms, spinning cameras, wild angles, jump scares, shrieky ghosts, demons, etc., along with about as much just-for-fun gore as anyone is probably allowed to get away with in these things, specifically a cool new power pulled out for the finale that, if I didn't know better, could almost be convinced that this was this multiverse movie's way of nodding back at Everything Everywhere All at Once and going, okay, that's very cool moves you got there, but we can get pretty nuts too. And well, that earlier film is in no danger of being topped either as my favorite film of the year so far and the more daring and original multiverse adventure. I don't know how they're ever going to find a cooler way to end a Doctor Strange movie than this. I mean, holy shit, you gotta see this to believe it. It's fucking awesome. Cumberbatch, as before, makes a good anchor for stuff like this. He's got the right mix of mischief and dignity that you need for the sometimes thankless task of being the audience baseline for what's normal and what's actually weird among the new stuff, and it's honestly refreshing after watching this character go through the ringer so many times before this, to see him get to work a straightforward good guy with a job to do superhero narrative that affords some gonzo alt takes thanks to the premise allowance for more than one version of him and everyone else to show up. Likewise, he has winning chemistry with Gomez, who isn't necessarily like the true protagonist of this, but is definitely the eventual story focus in the good and evil fighting over the golden child narrative that eventually spins up, and she more than rises to the occasion for her well-telegraphed ascension as Marvel's latest honor student who can kick your ass young Avenger to be. But the big talk will probably deservedly center on Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, going all the way back around to all-out villain mode as the film surprisingly, and in my estimation wisely, opts not to undercut the stakes by explicitly assigning the blame to some other influence, at least not for now. Wanda is the explicit villain of the piece, however dramatic and sympathetic she may be, and not only the actress but the narrative and director make an absolute meal out of retrofitting the Avengers superhero magical girl into a literal wicked witch who gets to drop down out of the sky, tear through innocent bystanders, rip apart the good guys and would-be protectors to menace an innocent child. It's a bold maneuver considering how popular this character is and how sympathetically her last appearance informed her arc, even amid criticisms that WandaVision didn't grapple enough with the extent of what she was actually doing. And, you know, one imagines there's probably several theses already being written about the obvious subtextual implications to the narrative here of a power-crazed white woman in her 30s who wants to literally drain the life out of a Latina teenager to restore her fake Americana suburban LARP fantasy. Not exactly subtle. I can see some people being not happy about it, but I think it really works here. It's an interesting place to take it, and it's really brave of them to commit to it, in my opinion. I also just like how not try hard it feels otherwise for something that actually does accomplish so much in terms of throwing crazy new ideas at the screen, visualizing big concepts, taking popular characters to really dark places, introducing a terrific new character, and having a ton of breathing room for spectacle for its own sake without ever feeling the need to be an entire season of television too long to buff up its self-importance, like some other films in the genre I could mention recently. I don't know if it's life-changing, but it's a lot of fun, and that's what these things should be. 8 out of 10 feels good to be back.